Taryn Dryfhout, author of You've Been Gilmore and But I'm a Gilmore, and you're listening to Fandom Family Chats.
Hi guys, welcome back to Fandom Family Chats. I'm Maureen and we're here with...
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And our special guest today is author Taryn Dryfhout she wrote I've Been Gilmore, and her new book is out called But I'm a Gilmore, Stories and Experiences of Honorary Gilmore Girls, Cast, Crew, and Fans. Welcome, Taryn.
Thanks so much for having me back.
Yes. So if you did not see our last interview we did with Taryn, it was about a year ago, right?
I think almost 2 years ago now.
Oh, really? Wow. You realize we do this long. So you can find our, we'll post that link in our podcast description, but you can catch our first interview with her pre-second book coming out. So lots of information there for you. And we got some questions for you, Taryn.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Can you talk to us about the process for writing this book? How did you get in contact with the cast and crew?
Yes. Okay. Well, when I spoke to you last time, I think my first book had just come out.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the introduction to that book, I wrote kind of my story about how I came to Gilmore Girls and what the show had meant to me and how that had led to the creation of the book. And after I published it, I got a lot of, messages and emails and comments and things from people telling me their version of how they came to the show and what it meant to them and how Gilmore Girls had impacted their lives. And so my initial idea for this book was to do a book of fan stories, because I kind of started interacting with people online and, just hearing a lot of stories and realizing that I certainly wasn't unique. Everybody that watches the show has their own kind of Gilmore story. And, I was hearing stories that were much more interesting than my own. A soldier in Iraq who'd watched the show to get through time, and people who had watched it with their mothers while they were dying, and things like, people coping with really big realities. And, two kind of themes kept coming up in these stories. One was comfort, which I think is almost common to everybody who watches Gilmore Girls. Yep. Well, certainly who watches it the way that we do.
Yes.
And in community, people were finding relationships with their family or friends, watching it together was deepening those relationships, or they were making friends through the online fan communities, or even watching it in isolation, but finding community in the people of Stars Hollow and that kind of thing. So the initial inception for the book was a book of fan stories that would kind of show these two recurring themes throughout people's experiences with the show. So I did a call just after my book came out in 2020 for contributions, which I didn't expect to be sort of perfectly written. But, if people could just put some words down and tell me what the show means to them and what it's meant for their lives. And so the idea was that I was going to kind of edit those into a nice collection. And I have a very good friend who's also into Gilmore Girls, as a lot of us do. And
that's what good friends do. They watch Gilmore Girls.
Exactly, they watch it together. So I was chatting with her about, where the book was going, and she said to me, "Have you thought about reaching out to cast and crew?" Which, of course, I had thought about, but I thought that was probably a fruitless endeavor. Some little writer at the bottom of the world that nobody in Hollywood knows about. So I sort of took up her suggestion. I thought there's nothing to lose. If they say no, they say no. So they didn't. Actually, I ended up interviewing about 70 cast and crew.
Oh, wow.
About over 50 have made it into the book. And it was a really wonderful experience, but I wasn't sure at the start what was going to come out of those interviews or what this book was going to look like. And it ended up being really magical, for lack of a better word, because the cast and crew all had their own Gilmore stories as well. And they talked about things like comfort and community and all those same things that we as fans love about the show. They were resonating with those as well. And so the book sort of kept developing as things went on, and its final shape, I really hadn't decided until probably 6 months ago, but it took shape in three sort of big sections. So the first is cast and crew, and which I've called It's a Show.
Love that.
that the experiences of, everybody from like actors to editors to cameramen, anybody that would talk to me about their time on Gilmore Girls. And then the second section, which I called It's a Lifestyle, is creators. So it's people who have been such big fans of Gilmore Girls that they've gone on to make it into something, like a merchandise business. I talked to Jenny and Marcus Whitaker, who run the Fan Fest, Christy Kelly, who wrote the cookbooks, those kinds of people. So they're sort of the next level up fans. And then the third section, which is It's a Religion, is all of the fans and all of the fan stories that made it into the book. So
what an appropriate title for that part of it.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. I had a bit of an epiphany. I thought it's just perfect. So it's ended up being basically a collection of people's Gilmore stories, and people who are touched by the show either because they were in it or because they then watched it or because they made it some sort of lifestyle or job. So I'm really happy, I think, with where it landed. But it was a very long process.
Yeah, because I actually think I remember when we interviewed you, you were talking to us about how people had already like exploded your inbox with their stories of Gilmore. It was the fans who were just like, hey, I've got this. And it was just bombarding you with, because the religion aspect is such a cool title, because those of us who are genuine fans of the show, like we'll watch it year round. It doesn't end. Even the part, like I sometimes get flack for this, but I'm not a particular fan of the Year in the Life. I'm more to the series than the revival, but that makes it into every one of my rotations when I watch through the whole series because it's Gilmore.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have to.
It doesn't matter if we like it or not, because these people are so real to the fandom that is part of the story, whether or not you like it. It's they're real to you. So that's what an appropriate title for that. So for the flow of the book, does it read like a typical book would because the theme is kind of the same throughout all the stories? Or is it kind of like, I don't want to downgrade it, but like, those chicken noodle soup for the souls, those kind of books where they have like sections and stories. What does it read more like? That where it's section off, or does it read like a book from beginning to end because the theme is comfort throughout?
So technically it's an anthology in that every chapter is a standalone person. So every chapter of the book is a person's name and it's their story. And so you could technically read it in any order. You could just open to somebody's chapter and have a read and then read another one another day. But I have suggested in the introduction that it would be better to read from cover to cover, just because the building of those themes, especially between sections. So, I mean, I guess you could read the cast stories in any order that you liked, but it would be preferable to read that section before moving on to the creators because, excuse me, it kind of builds from we're the people who worked on the show to we're the people that have, made this a part of our lives every day to we're the people who just can't get enough of the show. And so those themes are throughout, but I personally think it's best read from start to finish. Yeah.
And it's not like you just threw it together last minute. Like there was thought that went into the order of the book. There was care taken into how you structured it. So it makes sense that beginning to end would be the right way to read it.
Yeah, preferably. With cast and crew, I battled a lot about how to structure that because I didn't want to start putting any hierarchies into that. And so the cast and crew section, I've ended up ordering it in order of appearance. So,
that's smart.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to sort of put any labels on who I thought were more prominent actors or characters in the show. And,
that's our next question. Who's the better actor of everybody?
We know, though, that the Gilmore Girls, it's so unique in that every character is important. Like it's a show where we remember every single appearance. Somebody that might only have one scene is a really memorable character. Somebody like, Joe from the Deer Hill Lodge, which was only like one episode. But everybody who knows Gilmore Girls knows that name. So, I just didn't want to be the person who sort of started trying to decide where people go. So we've gone from order of appearance. And
that's smart.
Yeah.
Smart. And you had a unique perspective of talking to both fans and cast alike. And the fandom, like we talked about, can get pretty intense. And they view these characters not just as real characters, not just real people, but as theirs. Like it's Gilmore is almost like our property because we love it so much. Are there any teasers you can give us from that perspective? Like some of the stories that wrote in, is that kind of, is there anyone who kind of responded that way from the perspective of these are my characters, these are my family?
Probably the person who took it that far the most is a man who's in the creators section in the middle. He is a huge Gilmore Girls fan, and he's an enthusiast for filming locations. So his chapter is mainly about the website that he's put together, where he's loaded all the locations for Gilmore Girls as well as some other shows. But this man has the biggest autograph collection of Gilmore Girls on the planet, because he personally handwritten to every single person on the cast. I'm talking everybody, and asked for autographs. And I think he said about 700 people came back.
Holy cow.
He's got these huge photo albums with autographs in them. And yeah, I'd say he's probably got the most relationships, because he's actually reached out to those people, and some of those people have become friends. He's got a really great story in the book about how he proposed to his now wife. And he had this whole setup with Keiko and Emily Kuroda to do like a big surprise proposal. And it's very interesting. He got a conversation going about Kim's Antiques and what things they might sell there. And what his then girlfriend didn't know was that Mrs. Kim had a ring in her bag that he'd already given her. So she pulls it out and says, sometimes we sell jewelry, do you want to look at it? And so he got down and he did the whole thing. And so he's probably the most connected fan I've actually met.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Love that.
I kind of wish my husband was tipped off on that a long time ago.
It's just a great story though, of someone who's not just accepted it as a show, but who's really gone, this is my life, and I really want to interact on a much deeper level. How
interesting. I love that. I seriously can. I know we told you this last time we interviewed, but I cannot wait to read that book. And kind of in that same vein, like, where was there one group that was a little more animated than the others? Like between, if it was between like cast and crew or fans, is there one? I know that the cast and the crew, they were a part of the show, so they legitimately were. This was their life. But like we said, fans can get that way too. Was there one group that was more animated than the others in that perspective?
Not really, because some of the cast and crew members have now become really big fans, like Nick Holmes and Artie, who played Seth in You Jump, I Jump Jack, both huge fans of the show as well as cast members. So it was really, really nice when I got a story like that, where somebody talked about it as more than work, but really as something that's part of their life. Nick Holmes's interview was incredibly touching, the way that he talked about how Gilmore Girls had impacted his relationships and his life going forward. And of course, a lot of the people that I interviewed are the people who the cast members who go to FanFest, and so that this is not work in the past for them either. This is part of their lifestyle as well. They go every year and they interact with the fans, and they've become kind of a sub family. They have this little reunion every year with each other. So no, I guess I feel like every section had a lot of heart, because the people in this community, whether they're in the show or watching it, are so deeply invested, more than other shows that I've come across. I love a lot of TV shows, but I know that I don't feel the same about those ones that I do about this. And of course, I'm not the only one. And so, no, I feel like the real heart of the book is that everybody who has been touched by Gilmore Girls has one of these stories, and it has a lot of meaning for them. Yeah.
And there's no limit to when you can become that kind of fan of Gilmore Girls. Like, we had interviewed John Cabrera, and it was when he was just starting to watch it for the first time ever. And he became a fan. And that was just a year ago when he started watching it. So there's even the people who are on the show, you don't have to be, you're not classified as a super fan if you watch it from the very beginning when it first started airing in regular syndication. You can pick it up anytime, because Gilmore is one of those rare shows that can transcend time.
Yes.
Like, I love when Rory got that OG Mac computer for her birthday, the one with a see-through top, which is completely not relevant anymore, but it doesn't even matter. The fact that they have, I love watching the progression of cell phones that they have in there. It doesn't matter because there's just something about the writing and the acting on the show that it doesn't matter what time frame you're in, it connects to you in such a real way.
Oh yeah. My mom and my sister-in-law both just started watching for the first time in the last 2 years.
Oh wow.
And now they're obsessed. Yeah. I watched it way before they would.
My mom's about to come up here to help me when I have my mastectomy. My mom is going to be here with me for a week, so that's I get control of the living room during that time. So that's all we're gonna watch. It's gonna be all Gilmore all the time. That's it, nothing else.
Perfect.
So what was it like talking with the cast? Was it something that was kind of nerve-wracking for you, or was it, did they just push you at ease because it was just such a comfortable topic?
It wasn't as nerve-wracking as I thought it might be. I actually had an opportunity just before I started interviewing to go to the virtual fan fest because I can't remember if it was 2020 or 2021, but there was a year where obviously that just was not going to work with COVID. It was obviously disappointing for the organisers, but I thought it was fabulous because I'm in New Zealand and I hadn't been able to go.
And it was only $35.
That's true. Yes, it was cheap, but it was, it took place in my own living room. But I think that helped me a little bit, just kind of transition into being comfortable online with some of the cast members. But mainly it was a real honor. People shared really sensitive information with me at times, and there were really, really moving interviews. The interview with Ryan Herman, where she talks about her experience on the show, but also experience of growing up with her father on the show. We just cried buckets. It was really an honor, I think, for people to open up to me and spend that time with me. And I think obviously it was magical for me as a fan, but then I also had to think about the responsibility I had. I had a lot of stories and I wanted to take the responsibility of that seriously from cast and crew and fans. People had shared a lot of sad things, things that upset them, but then also happy things. And, I guess I mainly just wanted to make sure that I was doing everybody justice.
Yeah. Yeah, you're the gatekeeper of these stories that people are trusting you with. It is a big responsibility.
Yeah,
And just like, there's a lot of things that I equate to Gilmore because of how I grew up in the time period when it came out. It was very important, very special to me. And I have specific memories tied to certain episodes of Gilmore. But even you just saying Edward Herman's last name right there made me emotional. Because I knew him from, the first thing I think I ever saw him in was Richie Rich. I don't know if you remember that movie, but that was like one of the first things that I can remember seeing him in. I don't relate him to that. He's Richard Gilmore.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with Kelly Bishop. Like the first thing I saw her was Dirty Dancing, but she is Emily Gilmore. Yep. And so just thinking of those people and what they gave of themselves is that alone is heartfelt, but you are being given these stories and trusted with these very, not necessarily intimate, but personal ways that the show has helped people and pulled people along and pulled people forward. And it is a big deal. And it's not just that it's a big deal for you to get right, but what an honor it is to have you be willing to share these stories with other people on behalf of the people who share those stories with you. I mean, it's a great thing you did for them.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have endeavored to tell them all really well and recognize the vulnerability that was there and how honest people were. And it was definitely, I think as the interviews went by, I started more and more feeling the weight of what I'd been entrusted with. Yeah. And it shaped me as well. I think as I went along near the end, I started sort of becoming aware of how listening to everybody else's stories was also reflecting back on my own and, obviously leading me to this project. And so, I mean, the whole thing is very precious to me, really. So I hope other people enjoy it, but I will always treasure the time that I had and the time that I, putting it together. And
yeah, what a unique experience for you to have. And kind of in that same vein, what was the biggest challenge in writing this book? Was there any story of your own life that you were able to put into it, or was it just solely other people? Like what were some of the challenges with that?
Well, I didn't put my own in because I'd already done that in the introduction to You've Been Gilmored. And I felt like I did consider it, but I felt like it would have been the same story with just an addendum on the end talking about this process. So I've obviously put an introduction into this book talking about the process for this. And so if everybody wants to know my story, they can read both introductions, but I don't know how interesting it will be. The hardest thing on this book was dealing with negative material. So as I went through interviews, obviously when you're talking about any kind of work environment or workplace, people working together, there's always going to be negative material that comes up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I initially shied away from this. I was quite focused at the start of interviews that I didn't want to go there. And I really just tried to avoid it at all costs. In some of my interviews, I even said like, hey, I'm not looking for, dirt. This is not going to be a dirty laundry book. I really just want to hear all the positive stories. And so that was kind of how I started, but things kept coming up and I wasn't sure how to handle it. I started putting that kind of material in a separate document with a little pin on it, just not sure what was going to happen with that. And I tried my best to kind of navigate around negative material. Like if something came up in an interview, I'd try and work with the cast or crew member around how we could say this in a way that's, that comes off well. I changed my thinking about halfway through around this. And this happened after I had an interview with a cast member who had a terrible experience on the show. Didn't have many kind words to say about it at all. And after the interview, I said, I'm not going to work with any of that material. I was trying to comfort them by letting them know that I wasn't going to put it in the book. But the opposite happened, and the cast member got really upset because the particular cast member felt like I was misrepresenting the show by leaving it out, trying to make this book where everything is rainbows and unicorns, and they'd had a really negative experience. And so I really started trying to think through, what does this mean? Like I didn't obviously want anybody to get hurt, and I didn't want to put a book together that didn't really say what the show was about, but at the same time I didn't want it to be a tell-all. That wasn't the focus of the book. So what I ended up putting in the final product is a chapter at the very beginning called Copper Boom, and it's all of that material that I didn't know how to handle, and it's just a really brief overview of, hey, this is what came up in the interviews. I wasn't there, so I don't know, I can't confirm if it's true, but the following things came up, and a lot of them came up a lot. So there'll be things that I've said multiple times. These same issues were raised by different members of cast or crew. And so just kind of getting those things out of the road. I did have a conversation with a cast member. So I had an early interview with the cast member, and I went back to this cast member. I just wanted to chat it out with somebody who I thought would, might have good insight on how to handle it. That cast member was not keen at all on me putting in any of that material. But as I went along, there was more people that were uncomfortable about me trying to constantly circumnavigate anything that didn't make the show sound great. Yeah. And so this is how it has become. I put it in, I've sort of said, I can't say for sure if these things happened because I wasn't there, but they did come up a lot. There's a few key issues that come up a lot, and it's right at the start of the book. So I've also said if people don't want to hear this, then just skip through. The book starts with Emily Kuroda, and you can hear all about how great it was for her to play Mrs. Kim. But I just didn't want to, going back to that, trying to do people's stories justice. I just didn't want to be that person who just took out everything that was uncomfortable and said, no, we're not doing that. So it has ended up in the final form. The cast member I discussed it with, I don't think is going to be thrilled about that because they just felt like they didn't want anything, understandably, anything taking away from the wonderful things on the show. But I have also put in a little bit of a defense in that chapter, just saying, you know, the show was great because of some of these things.
Yeah.
You know, people fighting in things are people fighting for the show. They're fighting for it to be good. Everybody there wanted to work and wanted to do well. And it wouldn't necessarily be what it is without all of those things. So yeah, that was definitely the most challenging part of the book, was just, you know, taking in all that information, trying to decide how to handle it, whether to release it or not, how to release it, how to do so in such a way that it wasn't damaging to anybody, but that it did accurately reflect experiences of people who maybe didn't always have a great time 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's real life.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
It's not all rainbows and sunshine. So, and I like that you put it in the beginning and not like hit it in the end.
I just wanted to get it out of the way, really. And then get on with what I really wanted the book to look like.
Well, and the other aspect too, I mean, part of the reason that so many of us relate to this show is because there is the nitty and the gritty in with it. And you like, it goes back to one of the very first episodes of Gilmore, when Lorelai is upset that Rory is connecting with Grandpa, and she freaks out at her and has this temper tantrum. And that's not pleasant to look at. It's not like it's all happy and sunshiny and perfection. We related to them because we've been in that place where we had a negative, bad attitude, or something negative or bad was done to us. And that's part of the reason why we connect so deeply to it, is because the Palladinos didn't shy away from putting them in their show.
Yes, exactly. And the whole premise of the show is, you know, pregnant at 16, haven't got the money to send my child to school. And I mean, the tense relationship between Emily and Lorelai, you know, the show's never afraid to go there.
Yeah.
And I just didn't really want to I just didn't want to misrepresent anything. And it's not that I wanted to focus on it. I mean, it's literally one chapter because I don't want to focus on it.
Yeah.
But I also, you know, I have been entrusted with a lot of information, and I just didn't want people to feel like I wasn't interested in their whole experience. I was only interested in the part that I wanted.
Absolutely.
So how has your life changed since these bodies of work have come out?
Oh, I don't know if it's changed that much at all, really. Still writing. I'm still doing my PhD. I've got a couple of years to go.
Okay.
I guess this book changed things a little bit for me in that it felt a little bit more validating, I think, because the first book, you know, when we talked last time, I'd spent 2 years in pandemic writing this book on my own, and nobody knew who I was, and having a book with input from everybody else is it's been a very different experience, because I mean, the whole book is input from other people, which I've obviously sort of shaped into a single voice, but it also meant it was much more collaborative, you know, going back and forth, making sure people were happy with how I'd represented them, and you know, just dealing with other people's material. And so there was a responsibility there that I didn't have with the first book, because the first book was whatever words I wanted to put down, I just did. And so yeah, it was a very different process, and I think it's been a little bit more exciting maybe launching this time, because well, for a start off, some people know who I am now and know I have another book, and so I've had people waiting for the book, which is nice. And I just think having all the cast and crew members makes it a little bit more official, that it's not just my ideas in my bedroom in New Zealand, but you know, I've actually got some input that maybe people haven't heard before. So yeah, I think this launch has been a little bit different, and in some ways a bit more exciting. Yeah.
And maybe you feel more different now as opposed to your life being so different.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I have more, well, perhaps not now that it's released, but while I was interviewing, I definitely felt like I had a little bit more inside information.
Yes.
Of course, I'm going to have that information now. Of course, there are things that have not been put in the book. There were a couple of things that were really particularly ugly that did not go in there. And so, I mean, that's nice. I feel, I guess, like a little bit more of an insider, and I've obviously connected with a lot of cast and crew, which was really magical for me as a fan.
Yeah.
And you know, if I think sort of 5 or 6 years ago, I don't think I would have believed that was going to happen. And yeah, so that's nice. Just being more connected into the Gilmore Girls community, I think.
Awesome. So like kind of following talking about your first book, You've Been Gilmore, followed by You've Been Gilmore, the companion. Which process was more intensive for you? Like, how did the two bodies of work differ for new release in terms of work or approach?
Between this one and You've Been Gilmore?
Yes.
This one was different because it relied on other people's time as well as my own. So, I had to set up interviews, and when I'm in New Zealand and they're in New York or Los Angeles, or, I've got to figure out the time zones. And there was one interview I really, really wanted, and we just couldn't make the times work. So I ended up getting up at like 3 a.m. to take this interview. Because it was just a huge clash with working hours and things when I was awake. So, having to plan around other people's time, and then, when I'm in the editing phases and having to send back to cast and crew to make sure that they're happy with what's going in. And I think it was a very different process for me in that I didn't have quite as much control as I did of the first book, because the first book kind of answered to nobody. And to be honest, nobody was interested before I put it out anyway. Nobody knew who I was. I didn't have any deadlines on it. Like, I don't even remember if I launched it, like announced a date. It was just, it'll be out when I'm done. So it was very different this time because I knew that people were relying on it and waiting for it, and just having to collaborate with people and work within their time frames. And it was probably a little bit more difficult in that respect. There were times where things were really busy and I kind of missed being able to just put it together when I wanted and chuck it out when I wanted. But of course, that's not the way the world works. But at the same time, that's been a blessing because, there's more than 100 people in the book. And so there's been 100 people waiting for it to come out and read their own story. And so that's been really nice because I haven't felt like I've been alone on the whole journey. Whereas the first time it was very much a project in isolation.
So I remember you talking about how much time it took to create your first book, because it was going in between scenes, pausing and rewinding and catching things and doing things. So it was very labor intensive. I remember you talking about that. And, in terms of the interview, the first interview I ever did was with someone who was in the UK. And I remember saying, well, what time works for you? And they told me the time, and I looked it up. I was like, okay, that's 4 a.m. for me. We're going to make this work. We're just going to do it. I'm not even going to say anything. And then he reached back out to me. He's like, I'm so sorry. I just realized what time that is for you. Let's work a different, but you have to take those interviews when you can get them.
Yeah,
exactly.
Everyone's busy. Everyone is doing all these things. So you're kind of a slave to that.
Yep, exactly. And there were, unfortunately, a couple of interviews we just couldn't make work because of the time zone. And I mean, that was a disappointment. But we're in the age of Zoom, and you guys, I think, in the US moved on from COVID before we really did. Like, you guys had opened up and some of the actors were working again, and we're still sitting here in lockdown. So I was available all the time, but that doesn't mean other people are. So we did the best we could, and I think we did pretty well in the end. But it was definitely a different process working with so many other people and trying to get 100 other people's stories right was definitely different.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. So like, as you went through this process, were there any theories you were able to get from the cast and crew about what Stars Hollow would be now?
Oh, theories. Oh, Devon Silvari, who plays Honor Huntsberger, had a hilarious theory about Honor. So I've got to get this right. She said
we're gonna fact check because we can. It's in the book.
I like to check it against the book. It's in the book, but from memory, she said that that Honor had given up everything to work towards social justice. That had become her life cause, and she didn't talk to Mitchum about it. They just sipped their cocktails and smoked on their cigarettes, and so that was quite funny. She's got a whole theory about what happened to Honor. Emily Kuroda had some theories about where Mr. Kim really is. I'll let you read that.
I cannot wait to read that.
So it's quite funny actually how invested people are in their own characters and where they've gone since then. There was a few really funny interviews around the revival because I had standard questions that I started with, and I asked everybody if they expected to be back in the revival, even if that was just the tiniest characters. And some of the answers to that were just hilarious. The man who plays, I can't remember what season, but he plays the doctor who saves Richard. You know, he does like a triple bypass on him. And he does a really good walk and talk scene where Emily's asking him where he went to school. And so, you know, I said to him, you know, were you expected to be called back for the revival? And he says, yes. And I think it was a travesty that I wasn't. Horrible mistake being made. So I got some pretty funny reactions out of that.
If there's a part 2 revival, he'll be Rory's OBGYN.
I think we need another revival for like the smaller characters who didn't make it in. What are you
That's
doing?
brilliant. Yes, let's do that.
It's just never going to end. And that's fine by us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's your theory of where the Gilmores are now?
Oh gosh. You know, I think I'm pretty committed to the relatively common theory that the baby is Logan's, but that Jess is Rory's Luke. So, you know, I think Rory's probably just raising the baby and Jess is hovering and there's sparks flying, but nobody's saying anything. And, you know, maybe Luke takes some time off and Jess works at the counter and Rory has breakfast there every morning. Something like that.
I love it. So by now it probably feels like you're a resident of Stars Hollow. Is there a character or environment that you connected with more, like maybe allowed you to write more completely about?
I think I've always connected more with Rory. You know, partly that's just an age thing. You know, people in my age group were at high school when Rory was, and then we all went to college at the same time and that kind of thing. So I definitely, you know, on that sort of study level as well, I think you guys already know that I'm a big nerd and I haven't left school in like 10 years. And so, you know, I found when I first discovered Gilmore Girls, I was a little bit later. It wasn't when it was on TV, but I went to university a bit later because I had babies. And I found her character very motivating for me. I think she, you know, I talked about this in my introduction to the first book, that I think it didn't change who I was, but I think her character made me realize more who I was, that actually I was that person. I was the study girl. I was the bookworm. You know, I think it made me really think more and reflect on how I'd always been. And yeah, so I definitely think that parts of Rory are still very resonant with me. But then as you get older, you also start to resonate with Lorelai, because now I have kids and I'm the mum and I'm working and I'm in that same age group. And so I think to an extent we all relate to all of them, don't we? Don't we all have Paris and Kirk moments?
Even Kirk.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Maybe not Rune. Maybe not Rune.
No, that's true. That's
not Rune.
Except for when the pants wouldn't go up his thighs. I relate to that. That's a problem.
Yes, we've all been there.
And I just want to encourage you that it's work dork. You can officially say you're a work dork now because you're writing and you're publishing books. So you're working as part of your studiousness, right?
Well, that's true. That's true. I might just be a dork without the work.
And that's perfectly okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, if Gilmore Girls has taught us anything, it's that it's okay to be a study
100%.
freak. Yeah.
Yes.
That's fine. We all have a little bit of Rory in us. Speaking of, did you have any cast or crew members that you got close to through all this process?
Yeah, probably Ryan Herman the most. Ryan Herman is just such a beautiful human being. Her interview was amazing, and most of the interviews took, you know, an hour and a half, 2 hours. I think we sat online for about 4 hours just chatting.
Wow.
She's really, really beautiful in every way, and I hope that we'll stay connected for a long time. Also Artie, I have talked to a little bit since then. I mean, I've spoken to all of them obviously since then, but on that sort of professional level. But yeah, I definitely think there's friendships there, and it was really great to get to know what people are like behind their characters, because when you've seen Gilmore Girls so many times, you obviously know exactly what Honor is like, or
Yeah.
Christopher is like. But and it's not just I want to know what happened on the job, but just even being able to chat, you get a sense of people's nature. And so that was really nice. There wasn't anybody really, I think, that didn't hit it off, or that I didn't like or anything. It was really great all around. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So who are the cast and crew members more active on social media that you can say?
That are in the book?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. We're active on social media. I'm not sure how active I am on social media. Okay. I've got a list. I'm just gonna have a quick.
There you go.
Okay, so Shelley Cole, she's quite active on social media.
She's a lovely human being.
She is. We love her.
Yes, she is. Her interview was great as well. Who else have I got? Active on social. Valerie Campbell, of course. Valerie Campbell is the queen of Gilmore Girls community, and her interview was good, but her name also came up in everybody else's interview. Which
I could see that
ongoing themes. So we'll call it Comfort, Community, and Campbell as the ongoing themes.
That's beautiful. Now, you said in our last interview, did you tell us that she was the one who, she kept them all connected? Was Valerie Campbell?
She did. Yes. So Valerie Campbell throws parties all the time and makes ice cream, and invites everybody that she is connected with. And, that came up in a lot of the interviews, was that she's sort of the glue that keeps groups together. And Gilmore Girls is one of those groups, because if they're available, they'll go to the ice cream parties, and other cast members will be there. And it was funny because when I talked with everybody about relationships within the show, a lot of them said that they don't have any friends they met on the show, but they're friends with people that were also on the show through Valerie's ice cream parties. So, they hadn't actually met or worked together at all on Gilmore Girls, but they now have this Gilmore Girls kind of relationship. So, Valerie's very, she was also great in connecting me with people because of that. So when I started asking for interviews, the first person who ever said yes, and I just have so much gratitude for him, is Biff Yeager, who played Tom. First person to actually take a chance on this writer he didn't know. And then I got 2 or 3 others, and one of those was Valerie. And Valerie was amazing because, she got in touch with everybody. Would you talk to Taryn? Would you talk to Taryn? So she put me in touch with a lot of the really big ones too, like Ryan Herman. And so she was so invaluable in the process. And it really took off, I think, after I got connected with her, because she's just so connected with everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And she's incredibly active on TikTok. That's who I
follow her on TikTok.
Yep.
Right.
I think it's actually called Valerie's Ice Cream Shop, or Valerie's Ice Cream, or something like that.
There's something to do with an ice cream.
Yes,
I can see her little logo.
Like the book, yeah. So Adam Wiley, who played Brad Langford, is very active on Instagram. Probably other things that I'm not active on, but he's in the book. And Jessica Kuiper, who played Shane.
Okay.
As a comeback. She's in the book. And I mean, there's a lot of other people that are not, I don't think are active on social media, which in some ways I thought was more interesting, because we don't necessarily hear so much.
Yeah.
Aiken Matthews, who played Headmaster Charleston. I'm not sure how active he is, but I've not heard his story until my interview. And Ted Rooney, who plays Maury. So I mean, it was kind of eye-opening for me sometimes when I came across one who I hadn't really followed on social media, because there wasn't necessarily so many interviews, or this book is full of some of those smaller characters, and that means that some of those stories haven't been told before. We know that people like Lauren Graham have written their own story about their time on the show, and so I obviously don't want it to be repetitive in any way. And so it was kind of nice in a way to land someone who doesn't talk all the time about Gilmore Girls on their social media, because it meant that I was going to hear something I didn't know, and would hopefully be able to share something that other people hadn't heard. So
absolutely,
it's a bit of a mix.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it that way, but I like it. So what are some teasers you can give us about the book?
Oh, teasers.
Teasers. Snippets, teasers.
Full stories are okay too. We'll take it all.
Okay. Let me start with something from the Copper Boom chapter.
Yes.
Perfect.
That's a smart way to go.
Okay, so I'll just preface it by saying that nobody is named in that chapter. I, of course, know who these allegations are against, but I haven't passed that on in the book. But one name came up constantly to do with drugs on set. And that caused a lot of problems.
I'm trying to think right now.
You can see both of our heads turning.
Just thinking about other stories. I don't want to pick because everybody had great stories. There's nobody in there who didn't have a great story.
This is not your favorite story. This is just a little teaser we can give the listeners.
Okay. Shelley Cole, who plays Madeline, talked about the reason that she didn't get to come back onto the revival, which was because Teal, who plays Louise, would not come back. And I guess production didn't want just Madeline or just Louise. They wanted the both of them.
Yeah.
So that was kind of an interesting snippet. I've got to think. David Sutcliffe, who plays Christopher, talked about contract negotiations in the last season, and that was really interesting because I didn't realize that he was. I'm not exactly sure what is meant by this, but he was supposed to be in all the episodes of season 7, every single episode. And the only reason he wasn't was because he couldn't commit to all those episodes. So the storyline was adapted to account for him not being able to be there. So I'm not sure if that just means he was going to be a lot more present before they broke up, or if Christopher was maybe in game at that stage, or what that means. But I feel like there's a bunch of possibilities in there.
Absolutely.
And it really makes me think about what could have been if he'd wanted all 22 episodes.
Yeah.
There's a really funny story in there from Renee Bell, who played Lulu.
Love her too.
Yes, she was lovely. But she told this hilarious story at the makeup chairs, getting ready for her scene, and Sally Struthers, who plays Babette, was in the room. And Reedy was half listening, as you do when you're sort of busy, and she heard Sally talking about chickens, like real chickens running around. And then she sort of zoned out, and she was getting her makeup and her hair done, and then she heard Sally saying, and if you put them in the microwave, they explode and it goes everywhere. And Reedy was horrified, only to realize that Sally Struthers had segued into a conversation about Easter peeps. Those little peeps?
Yep.
Yes, it was peeps exploding in the microwave, but that's just such a funny story to me. It's just such a Sally Struthers story.
I kind of want to try that now.
Chickens or peeps?
Toss up.
Hopefully peeps. I think the chicken would make a good mess.
And I've got one more example I'll give you that I thought was really interesting. Hopefully other people do. I'm getting really excited about these snippets, but maybe people won't be. But Joe Freer, who played Joe from the Deer Hill Lodge, talked about, obviously in his initial scenes where they meet at that conference, he's got, his name evades me, but it's the guy from Twilight, right? Billy Burke.
Billy Burke.
He's got him playing Alex, and they shot these scenes, and then there's some scenes with just Joe and Suki together. So apparently the Billy Burke character, he was not originally cast in that role. It was another man. And those scenes were all shot, and it was fine. It was done. And then Joe left. And a couple of weeks later, he got a call saying that something had gone down and he needed to come back in and completely refilm all the scenes that contained Alex. So there are original unreleased scenes of the Joe from the Deer Hill Lodge with an unknown Alex. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I have the unpopular opinion that I love. We did an episode on Lorelai's Men, and I actually really, really, really liked her with Alex a little more than I liked her with Luke.
You
I can see
over
that.
there.
She said she can see it.
Yep.
People were not happy with me about that decision.
You can see that too, right?
I can see her with Luke too, obviously, but I liked her a little bit better with Alex.
Oh, she has.
I like Alex.
Yeah,
I
And I
wish Alex
can't-
had like a proper departure though.
Yes, where he didn't just disappear into the smoke. I can't imagine anybody but Billy Burke playing him though.
No, no. Well, I mean, there were some problems, I think, even at the filming. Joe Freer talked about, he talks in the book about some uncomfortable, you know, chemistry, I guess, between the two of them. Things weren't working that well. But obviously they got through those scenes and then he left. And when he got called back, the information that was given to him was just something along the lines of, you know, that was not going to work because he was not the easiest person to work with. And they'd realized at that stage that Alex was going to have a story arc of, you know, 3 or 4 episodes. And they just didn't want to keep bringing that bad energy back to the set.
Yeah.
So I guess it was easier to make that decision then when there was only a couple of scenes to reshoot. So in the final episode, the scenes where Joe is in the kitchen with Suki and Alex is not there, you know, he's like putting too much port in the sauce, and those were all shot that first week. But anywhere Alex are in them as well, they were reshoots.
Okay. That's
so it actually took like several weeks really for Joe Freer to actually do his job, which was probably really a hindrance to the production crew, but he thought it was great because he got to come back and
absolutely
again. Yeah.
That'd be so much fun. And I think one of the things I love about him was him as the waiter on Suki and Jackson's first date, and then him coming back after Suki and Jackson are married. I love that. I'm sure they didn't mean for that to be a parallel, but in my head, I love that parallel, that he's there at the beginning and then he's there after they're married. I like that.
Yeah, but of course we know Suki knew him from her training days.
Exactly.
And I guess a trained chef probably wouldn't be a waiter in a restaurant, they'd be in the kitchen. So
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, we can try and make it work, but I'm not sure it does.
And then again, you know, Luke's baby mama probably wouldn't have been Jimmy's wife either, her girlfriend.
Yes, that's true. That
So
is
that awkward. So we are doing this new segment with all of our interviews now, where we do rapid fire questions at you.
Oh,
We're gonna do like 5 or 10, and you can be detailed if you want to, but it's just a this or that. And you just go through detail. So this is from you personally.
All right.
All right. Do you want me to start, or do you want to start, Maureen?
You can go ahead and do all of them.
Oh, okay. Yay. These are my favorites.
This is Amanda's favorite part.
It is. They're so much fun. All right. I'm only going to do like 10 of them for you. All right. Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
This is a big one.
Dude, nobody ever says chocolate. Nobody ever says vanilla. Thank you.
I prefer vanilla.
You're weird like me. It's okay.
This one's a big one. You can take your time. You can
take your time on this.
About it.
Okay.
This causes riots. Okay. Team Logan or Team Jess? Or are you like me and Team Switzerland?
Not an option here.
I'm a Team Jess in light of what we know about him in A Year in the Life.
Okay.
I mean, I've probably always been a bit Team Jess, but there's obviously problems there. But I feel like those problems had resolved by A Year in the Life. So now I am pretty strongly a Team Jess.
I like you enough to let that be overcome in our relationship.
Maureen likes Logan.
I'm very firmly in the Team Logan camp.
But I'm very Switzerland. I will say both.
I love adult Jess in A Year in the Life. I love him. I think he's great. Yeah. I think I think he's too good for Rory in A Year in the Life.
Oh.
Which doesn't really say nice things about Logan. I realize as I just said that out loud. But I just think Rory and Logan fit better. But I would like, if I were unmarried and Jess was a real person, I would like to date a Year in the Life Jess.
Right. But you'd also want to date original
100%. 100%, yes.
But would you date A Year in the Life Logan? Logan who won't break up with his fiance and
yeah, see, it's Jess. But you're in a spot.
No, Rory and Logan fit better than myself and Logan does.
But he still won't break
that feels like a betrayal coming out of my mouth, though. I don't know if I like that.
This is why we need another revival.
We have scheduled for our season 3 of the podcast. We're gonna do a live where we're debating Rory's guys.
Oh, yeah, it'll be fun. They might get heated.
I know. We are doing one at 9:30 Eastern, so we're on the same time, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
You want to jump in?
It is going to get heated. That's why we're doing it live, and we're doing 2 of them. We're doing one at this time and then another one on a Sunday afternoon, because even within our own team, we are very divided.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I gotta start coming up with some defenses. All right. Sour or sweet?
Oh, neither.
Are you salty?
Yeah, I'm diabetic, so I try to avoid sugar at all costs, and I do not like sour. So I guess sweet, but not often.
You like sweet though. All right. Dogs or cats?
Or cats. I have both, but cat. If I could only have one, I'd say cat.
Me too.
Amanda probably has like 4 in her office right now.
Actually, I only have a dog.
Wow.
I know.
First time ever.
All right. Let's see. Cake or pie?
Pie.
That'd be my choice too. The frosting, in my old age, frosting has gotten too sweet.
It's too sweet.
Pie means something different in New Zealand, though.
Oh, does it? What does it mean?
Well, we don't have like sweet pies like you guys have, like cherry and pumpkin, and pies here are like savory pastry with like meat and vegetables.
So it's like a pizza.
Or like a pasty.
It's more like a casserole. Yeah, like a pasty. Yeah, like a casserole and savory pastry. So
those are good though.
They are.
I would choose those over a sweet pie.
Yeah, I mean, we do have those pies, but they're not really that significant in our eating.
All right. Movies or TV shows? That's kind of a
TV
gimme.
show. Sure.
Which one?
Which one?
You like what, like Gilmore Girls?
I'm hooked on Parenthood right now.
Oh yes,
That has something to do with Gilmore.
Almost every show I've watched post Gilmore, like I started watching Parenthood because Lauren Graham was in it. I started watching The Resident because Matt Zuckery was in it. I started watching This Is Us because Milo was in it. So it's just like, that's how I find all my shows. It's Gilmore characters in this one.
So true. Okay, we'll do a few more. Sweaters or no. I don't want to do that one. Creamy or crunchy peanut butter?
Crunchy.
Yes.
Like the crunchier, the better. Almost just peanuts.
We actually had someone say almost exactly that.
I love it. Okay. Pickles or olives?
That's my favorite one.
Olives.
What kind of olive?
Any.
Yes, that's the right answer.
I love all
absolutely
two.
the right answer.
Oh yes. Beach or mountains?
Mountains. Definitely like a forest hikey type person.
I love the mountains too. I wish I lived in the mountains.
We have hills in Wisconsin. Does that count?
We have tiny hills in Texas, so it doesn't count.
No.
All right, I'm gonna do one more, and it's gonna be cookies or brown. No. You're diabetic. That's an unfair question. You gotta think about
Ooh, I know one you gotta ask.
which one.
Burgers or tacos?
Ooh,
Burgers.
Now the follow-up question is, Amanda, even though you didn't say this, but what's the follow-up question?
do you eat your tacos from the left or the right?
Oh, what do you mean? Like which end?
Yeah,
No,
like how
which way
do
does your
you
head
go
go?
in to eat your taco?
Like take a bite and it all falls onto the plate. And
I eat
that's
mine
pretty
like a
much
taco
every
salad.
taco's ever gone for me. With a knife and fork after it all.
That's how I eat it. So we were Amanda and I were at a convention once, and they had the panels in front, and there was this one girl who every single panelist, that was the question she asked, and we were like, that is brilliant, because you watch everyone on stage try to like mimic eating a taco to figure out which way they go in.
Oh, you set me up for
We did. We were hoping to see some mime action there a little bit, but that's okay.
You're smarter than it.
Another section that we just introduced to our podcast is most likely to. Now, this one we want you to answer as if you are dealing with the Gilmore Girls characters.
Yes. So
Okay.
this is all Gilmores.
So, and the characters, not the actors.
Yes.
So who is more likely to marry someone they just met?
I feel like Lorelai based on what happened with Christopher.
Makes sense. Especially if
my
she's in
answer.
a very emotional spot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ooh, I know the answer for this one. Who is more likely to flirt their way out of a ticket?
Also Lorelai.
I was thinking Lorelai or Logan. One of them would have to be it.
I knew you were going to say Lorelai or Logan because I think both of them could flirt their way out of a ticket.
Yes, absolutely. Who's most likely to eat something off the ground? Well,
Kirk.
yeah, that was my thought too.
That's where I was going to. Now I want to see if we all get the same answers every time.
Who is most likely to forget their mom's birthday?
Oh,
Oh. I want to say Colin or Finn.
That's accurate.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I think Colin or Finn.
Even Robert. Robert doesn't seem to like his parents very much, but Finn is never really fully there. So he's got to be cooked up in there. Who? Oh, this is an easy one. This should be an easy one. Who's most likely to lose all their money in Vegas?
Logan. But any of the life.
I was gonna say I would take any of them as an option. This might be the same exact answer. Who's most likely to get drunk and lose their wallet or purse?
Probably Finn.
Who's most likely to get lost in their hometown?
Kirk.
Yep, that was my
Uber.
Uber.
Yeah.
Not Uber. Who is most likely to sign up for a dating show?
I want to say Paris.
Oh, God.
Ooh,
There
that
we
would
go.
be
Think
fun.
about Paris.
I
Well,
think I
she
would
signed
like
up
to
for
see her on a
speed
dating
dating,
show. Yeah,
and she told
see it.
everybody that she had sex. So I feel like she puts herself out there.
I could see it.
I would really enjoy watching that episode of a dating show. If Paris on there. I was thinking Liz might be capable of doing that. Pre-TJ.
See, I went
Or
Madeline.
pre-Gary. Madeline. Oh yeah, Madeline Louise would too. Who would be most likely to help you cover up a crime?
I want to say Suki after all the marijuana through the town.
Pickles! Pickles!
I mean, she literally did that to Jackson. So I'm gonna go with Suki.
That's true. Who is most likely to forget where they parked their car?
I'm gonna say Emily because she probably doesn't park it herself.
It's true.
I like
It's
it.
true. I was thinking Finn again.
Oh yeah.
So many
yeah.
of these.
But it's alcohol involved, doesn't it?
Exactly. Two more. Who is most likely to forget to pick up their kids at school?
Who's got the most kids on that show?
Suki?
Maybe like
yeah.
Suki or Lane?
Most likely to forget. Do they have to actually have kids, or can I just say
No.
Okay, I'm gonna say Miss Patty then. I feel like she'd get distracted by a
Any
man or
dude?
something on the way and forget she's been out for.
Someone talking about the biz.
Yeah, talking too much. She's gonna forget them.
Last one. Who would be most likely to become a social media influencer?
Surely Madeline or Louise.
Yes, that was my thought too.
That was my
Louise,
thoughts
for
too.
sure. Absolutely, for sure. So we always close out our interviews asking where everyone can find what you're up to next. So for you, where can they find your book or your social media accounts, and maybe if you have a different way you prefer they get in touch with you?
So I am on Instagram, but I am not as active on there. I'm not in the right age group, I don't think. So Facebook is where it's at. I've got an author page, Taryn Dryfhout author on Facebook. At the moment, the books are all available on Amazon on Kindle and in paperback. Later this year, they are going to be hitting some bookstores in the US, which is very exciting. But at the moment, Amazon. And what I'm doing next is I'm actually working on similar book to the first one, which is an encyclopedia, this great big book of lists based on Desperate Housewives.
Ooh. Oh my gosh, it's been so long since I've seen that show.
Yes,
I used to love that
I've
show.
seen it, and I watch it constantly.
That's a beautiful show.
It is.
Now, when your books go into bookstores, are they going to be like in like Barnes and Noble, or are they going to be in like some smaller mom and pop stores, or what kind of stores are you hoping they'll be in?
They'll probably be in Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
And sometimes they go into book co-ops like Bookshop and things like that. So
Awesome. Okay.
more information to come when I can confirm all of that.
Awesome.
Now that I know that they're out officially today, after this, I got to remember to go buy them right after this. I'm excited.
Yes.
I like holding them in my hand though, because I like to be able to smell the books.
Yeah, I'm a book buyer.
Yeah.
I want the
I
book.
feel a little bit like Rory.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Taryn. It's been so much fun talking with you. I'm so glad you're such a good sport, and I love all this information you have. I think you're an incredibly interesting person, and you are a delight to talk with. So thank you so much for coming on our show with us.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's been great.
You're very welcome. All right, guys, stay tuned. If you haven't seen our last interview with Taryn, check that out, where she's talking about her first book, I've Been Gilmore. And we also have some interviews with John Cabrera, Shelley Cole, Ringy Bell. Check those out too. All the links will be in the description. And watch out for our next Gilmore Girls episode coming at you real soon. And then we'll see you real soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Loving our content? Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to share our podcast with your family and friends. We want to continue the conversation with you. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok under Fandom Family Chats, or one of our ever-growing Facebook groups by searching Family Fan Club. We've also launched a website, Family Fan Club 2021 at wixsite.com. You can email us there and keep checking it for announcements and merch coming soon. And of course, be sure to tune in every week for new episodes discussing all your favorite shows.